Good evening. My name is Louis Powell, and it's my pleasure to come before you once again on behalf of the Cook County Bar Association, the world's oldest, and we like saying that, the world's oldest African American bar association technically in the world. Today, we're always going to have a good show, but today the topic is very timely. We're going to be talking about the area of community policing, i.e. protecting yourself against the police brutality, so forth and so on. And we have one of our rising stars, Akmir Akbar, who's with the law firm of Kamir and Lambert. Tell us a little bit about the law firm.
Yes, Karchmar Lambert, we're a litigation firm, and we do personal injury, nursing home negligence, wrongful death, and we also handle civil rights matters just to protect the rights of any injured individual who needs experienced counsel for litigation.
And just to put it in perspective, he's very modest. Okay, the named partner, Mr. Lambert, along with Commissioner Larry Rogers. Larry Rogers is a former president of the Cook County Bar. They just had a significant case involving Sandra Bland. Can you talk about that for a little bit?
That's correct. As you all know, it's a case of national significance. Sandra Bland was a matter where Ms. Bland was stopped as she was driving in Texas by an officer who eventually pulled her out of her vehicle forcibly to effect an arrest, and she wound up under unfortunate circumstances being found dead in her jail cell, hanging. We bought suit, and we litigated the case for over a year, and we just recently resolved that matter through a settlement with the state of Texas and the sheriff's office down there.
Counsel, what was that dollar amount? You can tell it.
Okay, well, the case resolved for $1.9 million. In addition to that, though, just a monetary value to the family, we were also able to enact significant reforms in the sheriff system in that county to be able to get them to monitor prisoners in a better fashion, and also to screen for mental health.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, our number is 312-738-1060. 312-738-1060. We ask you to please call in because we have a young man who's really on the forefront, and it's good that he's a young man. That means he has time to work at his craft. We're living in some serious times. As a young man, it was not unusual for the police to be physical because unfortunately being a policeman sometimes is a physical job. Well, sometimes to seduce somebody, you may have to be physical. But that does not mean that you have to just beat the living daylights out of somebody. And what we're seeing nationwide and what we're seeing local is just a rise in police, not only brutality, but it's outright police shooting individuals. Is that fair?
Right, that's fair to say, and I think part of it, I mean, it's debatable, but I think much of it is something that's always been a problem just coming to light because of social media. We're just starting to hear about things that might have been going on for decades, and we're able to see it much more readily than in the past where you had to actually get a reporter to investigate it. Now you can see it with your own eyes. People are actually capturing it with their cell phones, so we have a lot more information about what's been happening, and unfortunately, it's not the best situation.
Counsel, how long have you been practicing?
I've been practicing for 3 years approximately in personal injury and civil rights matters for about a year and a half.
What law school did you go to?
DePaul University. I went there for undergrad as well, too.
Very good. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this young man is what you want your son to grow up to be. That's the truth.
It's too much.
You're doing the right thing, and he's in an area that he's on the front line. Being in the area that this young man is not easy. You know, it takes a lot of work. The type of cases that he has are personal injury, civil rights cases. These are cases where the attorney is on, you correct me if I'm wrong, the attorney does not usually receive compensation unless they win or the case is settled, for the most part. So it's hard to find attorneys to do this type of work. This type of work is what you call the people's work. Now, your Cook County Bar Association, which was founded in 1914, has a history of being in the forefront of helping the community. And this young man, part of the committee work that he's doing is a civil rights committee at Cook County Bar. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Right. So myself and Mr. Ken and Lambert were both on the Civil Rights Committee of the Cook County Bar Association. One of our major initiative, of course, we're interested in a number of civil rights issues, but I think at the forefront right now with what we're seeing with police and community policing and police brutality is trying to get some kind of grip on the problem as far as community policing and working out some sort of rationale or methodology where we can reduce the number of fatalities or adverse encounters, whatever you want to call it, with police, just to increase to better the environment that we're operating in right now.
Counsel, what can the average citizen do, or what type of advice would you have for the average citizen if they're stopped by the police?
One thing, I mean, of course, you want to definitely comply to the extent that you can with the officer's questioning. You want to be respectful. A lot of police officers, they view it as a job. Many police officers, probably the majority of police officers, just want to complete their job and get home just like everybody else. If you could comply, that definitely helps with the situation. But in addition and beyond that, you want to be aware of your rights. Your rights to, as far as what questions you're required to answer, what you're required to do, and informing the officers that you're aware of that definitely changes the encounter for the better a lot of times. When the officer knows that you're informed, you get a much different response than somebody who doesn't have any knowledge as to what an officer is permitted to do or not do.
Attorney Akbar, let's take it step by step, because we all know, that sometimes something can escalate. Let's talk about a routine traffic stop. What advice would you have for the average citizen what to do when he is stopped or she is stopped by the police?
One thing I think that, in addition to everything that I just stated, in interacting with the officer, you want to be clear, and especially with all of the rash of shootings that we've had, make it so that the officer can sort of see what's going on. You don't want any sudden movements. You want to have your hands in front of you in plain sight. These are things that are common knowledge, but it's very important when you have officers who can go overboard and use excessive force, and they can always claim later, I was fearful for my life, I couldn't see. That removes that hurdle, so the officer can't later on claim I didn't see what was going on and I reacted out of a self-defense posture.
Counsel, what is this concept of community policing?
Community policing is a pretty broad term. What I would say it is it encapsulates a shift in paradigm from a dynamic where the police enter the community, perform their policing duties, and leave the community, where it's sort of it creates a dichotomy, a situation to where there's a dynamic of them versus us. Whereas community policing is a situation where we acknowledge that law enforcement is in fact a part of the community. They're a necessary part of any community, and that it's in our interest and the police officers' interest to work together to ensure positive outcomes.
Well, how are you working with the police?
One of the initiatives, kind of going along with what we just talked about with regards to police stops, is we're putting together a citizen interaction protocol that will
Hold your point, counsel. Caller, are you there? Caller, are you there? Look like we lost them. Please call back. Continue your point.
Sure. We're putting together a police interaction protocol. One thing that's fairly striking is that you get all of this training about driving, but you don't get any interaction or any
Sorry
training.
for the interruption.
Sure.
I think the person might have came back. Caller, are you there?
Hi, how are you?
Very good.
Great
Right
show. I
ahead.
just had one question. Is dash cam video admissible as evidence in court when you're dealing with something like that? I mean, if I have a dash cam on my car and I can see the interaction with the police, is that video usable as evidence?
Counsel?
That's a great question. It typically is. I mean, dash cam video captures surroundings that are in plain sight and in public view, so there wouldn't be any expectation of privacy by any officer. So that is definitely something that's changing the entire dynamic on its own. The fact that we have dash cams in police officers' vehicles and also in some citizens' vehicles is becoming common for people to go out and get their own cameras. So that's definitely admissible.
You left off, we were talking about the concept of community policing I take it the interaction, I think, of citizens with the police force, is that correct?
Right. So one of the things that we're trying to put together is a protocol just to give some specific actions that a driver should take when they have an encounter with the police, when they're pulled over, things that they can do to.
Sorry, Counsel, we have a caller.
Sure.
Caller, are you there?
Hello?
Yes, your question, please.
My question is, if the police stops me, why should I have to, don't they have to ask me, tell me why they stopped me or something?
They do have to tell you, inform you as to why they're stopping you, or more importantly, why you're under arrest. One thing that we mentioned, and we like to tell people, the Cook County Bar holds various seminars to train people in police interactions and their rights. You are entitled to ask the officer if you're under arrest. If you're not under arrest, the police can't detain you. That's one thing that escapes us a lot of times. You can speak to the police if they want to talk with you, but unless you're under arrest, you're not under any obligation to speak with the police.
Very good. I think we have another caller. Caller, are you there? Caller, are you there?
Yes. My question is, what are the requirements for private police departments? I understand several of the neighborhoods up north are putting together private police departments. Do you know anything about the requirements for private police departments, and is that something that you would suggest for South and West Sides also?
Counsel?
That is a good question, and I haven't heard too much, to be honest, about it. I know the University of Chicago over in Hyde Park, they have their own department, and from what I understand, the requirements are supposedly pretty stringent. It's not like any security company can just become a police force, because they do have full police powers in a certain jurisdiction. But I'm not sure as to why that would be necessary in just a neighborhood. I mean, the University of Chicago, they have students that have a different situation, and I'm not sure what gain the neighborhood would get out of that, other than being able to direct that department, and have greater control, which I'm not sure is really necessary. On the south side and the west side, I'm not really certain. I'm not sure if that would have any benefit, having a private police department. I definitely would look further into the issue, but as of right now, I can't see the benefit or how that changes things. I mean, if they have such broad power and latitude in any event, I'm not sure how it's really different.
You know what comes to mind, Counsel? My recollection in terms of the Trayvon Martin situation, my recollection was the individual that killed him was a member of a private security force, or a private force that their purpose was to patrol that particular complex. Is that accurate?
Well, in that situation, he was just a member of the community watch. He didn't have any official powers at all. So that's one of the things that makes that situation even more egregious. The fact that he wasn't deputized, anything of that nature. He's a private citizen riding around just like any of us, and that's when he decided he took it upon himself. He wasn't acting with any authority. So yeah, that's part of the reason why that case was so tragic.
You know, Ms. Tapper, in terms of, the interaction, I want to come back to because I think the interaction between the police department and the citizens, I think that is critical. Do you want to develop that point a little bit more further?
Sure. One of the things, I mean, we have several initiatives, and the community policing protocols for stops is one. But I think generally community policing encompasses a change in attitude as far as cooperation with the police, and just involvement, community involvement. That includes having residents of a community attend CAPS meetings. In addition, it also encompasses certain efforts to have a more diverse police force. We like to see a police force that's more representative of the communities, especially on the south side where we're getting all of these incidents and police complaints. At least if we had a more diverse police force, that would arguably remove some of the racial justification or biases that can be a cause of police brutality.
I think, Counsel, what you're saying is that it'd be a better situation for everybody if the police force more mirrored the actual population that they're serving. I saw an article, I believe, in the Sun Times the other day with Alderman Roderick Sawyer, who's the chairman of the Black Caucus, was advocating perhaps in terms of applicants waiving such things as minor drug offenses in order to have the pool of applicants be more diverse.
I can't speak to the application procedures. I do know that in general the city of Chicago has made a push to have a more diverse police force and having more black applicants. They've been actively recruiting, which is a good thing. But here's why I think communities need to have a more diverse police force. One of the roles that we overlook with police is they're interacting with individuals in the community. And I think that it helps if the people that they're interacting with can relate to them on a more individual level, where you have a police officer who's from the same area who could possibly speak to youth about the different situations in crime and policing. It has a different effect. There's value to that, and I think that that's overlooked. We typically look at the police officer's role of preventing crime or enforcing the laws, but there's also a role that we want to promote as far as police officers interacting with the members of the community.
And I guess what you're saying, Counsel, is in terms of it does not always have to be an adversarial position. I believe that's what you're saying. I think ladies and gentlemen, being a police officer is a tough job. That's an understatement. And the majority of our police officers are doing a fine job. It's just that you have a case of a few bad apples, and apparently, and here lately, it's happening on a regular basis. And I think that we as a people, minorities, so forth and so on, really need to really continue to advocate to keep the city government on point, that we're not going to tolerate just any type of just outright just brutality, and some type of fairness in terms of how they're treating people on day-to-day contact, which leads me to to the next question: stop and frisk. Do you have an opinion on that? Because I think that is a dangerous proposition.
Here's the thing, and here's my position on it. It seems to me to be a flagrant violation of rights. I mean, to be able to come up and invade someone's privacy without any articulable suspicion. You just come up and invade someone's privacy. I get that there's no arrest, but I don't see how it's helpful, and I don't see how it is able to guarantee any person any constitutional rights. I mean, you have a right, well, the police officers have to comply with probable cause to stop and frisk anyone, especially when we see, and we have decades of research about stop and frisk and the type of people, the minorities that it targets disproportionately. I'm not sure that the policy is fair to anybody in our community.
But the problem that we have, and we don't want to talk about the incoming president, but it appears to me, I'm not an expert on it, it appears to me that during his campaigning, he was advocating stop and frisk. So it's a possibility that this is something that may pick up, nationwide.
We are aware of that. That is definitely a concern of our incoming president, Mr. Trump, and that's a policy that he's advocating. However, I think that the courts have ruled on stop and frisk, and they haven't eliminated it entirely, but they've condemned the practice in several cases. As you know, in New York City, it's quite a popular policy among some segments. But that is something that we will have to address, and it could be possibly coming to Chicago with the presidency that we have. We may have more police departments thinking that's actually an effective tool now.
Counsel, I want to stay with stop and frisk for just a moment,
Sure.
Then we move on. The personal opinion, my problem with stop and frisk is that it's really humiliating, okay?
It is.
And you really stopping, minorities for really no reason. And I think what you're saying is that there are no statistics to show, correct me if I'm wrong, there are no statistics to show the ability to stop and frisk dramatically reduces crime.
In New York, supporters of stop and frisk have argued that there's a correlation between a significant decrease in crime while the policy was in effect. My position is, though, is that there are other ways to do it. And just because a policy is effective doesn't mean that it's justifiable. I mean, police officers, if they pulled every single person over on the south side, and I'm sure some of the people that they would find would lead to arrests and convictions. But you got to ask the question: does the end justify the means? And like you said, it's humiliating to be stopped in front of everybody and searched without having done anything at all. That's not a minor inconvenience. I know other people would argue differently, but it's not. It really isn't.
And I think, to the average citizen, the average non-minority, that is something that they're not accustomed to. And I think it is very foreign to them, the concept that a police officer would stop them for nothing, question them, have them stand up against the vehicle, pat them down. As you drive through the streets of Chicago, it's just not uncommon just to see, young people spread over the hood with police officers, patting them down. And again, as the council said very eloquently, it's more than a minor inconvenience. It's really quite humiliating. In terms of, if you can, in terms of the things that are going on in the city of Chicago, you have the Justice of, Carla, are you there? Carla, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. And I thank y'all for doing a great job with the information that y'all giving.
Your question, please.
Yeah, my question is about with the laws that applies in municipalities, especially Chicago and Cook County, and how they just automatically stop people. Stop people and they just assume in the community that then they violate civil liberties. Is that a double standard with us?
Counsel?
I'm not sure I understand your question. You're asking, is it a double standard that we're stopped so often in our community as opposed to other communities?
Yeah, yes, I am. Yes, I'm asking that. Is that constantly our civil liberties have been violated all the time?
It is. I mean, it's definitely a violation of civil liberties. The problem, though, is that, in law, there's not always a remedy to a problem. If you're stopped by a cop and you're in possession of some substance or something that could get you convicted, that evidence could be thrown out because the stop was improper. However, let's say the officer doesn't find anything at all, and you're inconvenienced, you're stopped, and then you have to go through your day after suffering that. What's the real remedy to you? I mean, I'm not sure that you can really file a lawsuit because you were stopped if there was no further harm, but yet there is some harm. So the law doesn't always do a good job of compensating people or taking care of people who've been in that situation where it's not a major injury.
We have another caller. Good response. Caller, are you there?
We have another caller. Good response. Caller, are you there? Yeah.
Your question quickly, please.
Hello?
Yes, your question, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go right ahead.
My question is that I'm being an outstanding citizen or whatever in my community. The police officers had got a confidential informant, and they ran in my house with a search warrant.
Okay. We have a little bit of feedback, but your question.
Okay, did we lose him?
I think we lost him, but the question I believe he was about to try to ask was, what if any rights that he had? I believe he indicated that a confidential informant, which happens all the time, led the police to his residence, and the police knocked on the door with a warrant.
Well, yeah, and I don't practice criminal law, but I can say that it seems it's an unfair practice, but confidential informants are used quite frequently by police. And you can challenge their testimony and their credibility in court later on, but it really doesn't do much at the time when your door is being kicked down. Like I said, these are the types of offenses that the law is not the greatest at compensating people with. You suffer an injury, you get a broken bone, the law can handle that and compensate for it. But if you're deprived of your rights in that matter, as far as it's a situation where the police did something and they claim to have a good faith belief that they're doing the right thing, it's pretty difficult to vindicate your rights.
Okay. you get the last word.
With that, I appreciate everybody tuning in. First off, I'd just like to say, with regards to community policing, I know that we've had a lot of high-profile events and shootings and police brutality cases recently. Things are just starting to come to the forefront, and I think that we definitely need to monitor that. But with regard to community policing, these are our neighborhoods, and we have to interact with the police. We have to find some sort of manner in which to do that. It's always helpful for you to get involved. If you can go to your local CAPS meetings, any sort of way that you can participate in the process is definitely welcome. The Cook County Bar Association, especially the Civil Rights Committee, is always advocating for civil rights and seeking new venues in which to challenge violations of those rights.
Very good. We're going to have to bring you back. I wish you the best in your career, that you go farther as you can in your career. God bless you. We'll be back the same time next week.
Thank you so much for having me.